had just been promoted to manager at a travel agency at Jet Set, and I went to the doctors for a change of the pill. I was having irregular periods, and I thought, oh, well, Dr. Hazel here, I'll go for a change of the pill, and went to my doctor and said I was having irregular periods, but my abdomen was very firm. And cut a very long story short, it appears that my spleen had enlarged to 20 centimetres, and I was actually diagnosed with leukaemia that night. So that was a heck of a shock. I went to the doctors for a change of the pill and diagnosed with leukaemia that night. And then they called me straight back. And when I was going up the elevator, I remember seeing bone marrow, oncology. I had no idea what all these words were. It was really, really scary. The doctor sat me down and spoke to me with the head nurse and said that on the screen, you know, your spleen's enlarged. And when he said you've got leukaemia, I thought I had leukaemia of the spleen. I didn't understand what leukaemia was. I did use a 4-letter word when I was told what I had, and basically I was admitted to hospital that night. I rang.
Did you cry?
Not initially. I rang my family, and I remember now my family had just nursed my father who had bowel cancer a few years before. I remember ringing my family and telling my brother, and there was just this deathly silence on the end of the phone. And I think that's when it hit me. I wanted to know what this battle was.
So you went home that night?
No, I was admitted to hospital in isolation. Very, very scary. Very surreal, like you said. And that night I read the books about leukaemia. All the different types. I didn't realise there were so many. I had decided that if the doctors the next morning told me I had 5 weeks to live, I was going 8 weeks. The fight within me had started straight away. I was diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukaemia, borderline AML, but I had a thing called the Philadelphia chromosome, which further on down the track I found that chemo won't kill the Philadelphia chromosome. Because it's surreal. I mean, you know, it was January the 16th, 1996. I had just had a New Year's Eve. I'd planned for the future, and now everything's just on the spin of a coin changed.
Yeah. So those days in the hospital, you were on your own. Did family travel up?
Yeah, my family travelled up. I'd recently broken up with a boyfriend, so I was on my own. And a lot of friends came to support me, and I just made a pact with everyone to just treat me normally. I'm very positive, bit of sense of humour, because this is how I'm going to cope with it. And that's what I made the decision on. This is how I was coping. Everyone copes differently. And I just tried to focus on every bit of positiveness and throw away the negatives. That doesn't always work, though, in the quiet times when you're by yourself. So I was initially in hospital for 10 days, had some chemo.
So did you have any emotional highs and lows on those drugs?
Not so much highs and lows. I do know that I was in a fight. I wanted to get my body and my mind together to fight this battle. I was a little gladiator, and this leukaemia was not going to take me without a fight. And
so in using that strong mind and that strong will, did you put in place any daily practice of meditation or things like that to help you with that, or?
No, what I would do was, if I had a downtime, I would play 2 songs. Brown Eyed Girl always makes me smile by Van Morrison, and there's a song called Search for the Hero Inside Yourself by M People. And they would just give me that little boost. My next option, because of the Philadelphia chromosome, was a bone marrow transplant. And if I didn't have the bone marrow transplant, I was probably given 3 years to live. That was my option. I was 32 at the time. Wow. So I chose to have quality of life if I didn't have quantity. And that's what I chose.
So leading up to your choices, what went in place?
Well, in the background, the doctors were then sourcing the bone marrow register to find me a suitable donor. And I think for me, I was extremely lucky on the bone marrow register that they did actually find a donor. To be diagnosed and find a donor and end up having the transplant the same year, I think I was a really lucky lady. Somebody was looking down on me.
So the decision making around your transplant, was that a sole decision, or did you have pressure or any influence from our family members? Or?
No, I think my family was supportive of my decision. I think for me, I wasn't ready to give up on life. I did make my own little personal stand against Philadelphia. The Philadelphia chromosome isn't a nice little sucker, so I decided that I wouldn't buy anything with the name Philadelphia in it, so I wouldn't buy Philadelphia cream cheese. I was Patrick Rafter's travel agent then. I wouldn't book into Philadelphia. I wouldn't book anybody to Philadelphia. So if you came into my travel agency and you wanted to go to Philadelphia, I'd give you to one of my consultants, because that was just my way of making a stand. I looked at my options. I read up, I did some research, and if I had any doubts or questions, I'd ask Dr. And she could tell me in layman's terms, and she'd draw pictures, and so that I could understand. Now, some people don't want to know everything, but I wanted to know everything. For me, I would take a positive. I treated everything in little journeys. Yes. So I didn't focus on the big picture. I didn't focus on too far in advance. I just focused on, okay, well now I've got to have these tests. This date, it was about 2 weeks before the transplant. I just majorly freaked out.